was wonderful. But try to speak right into the microphone so that it does get clearly recorded and so everyone can hear you. Good evening, Levi. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson and City Council members. My name is Levi Herrera Lopez. I'm a resident of Southeast Salem, and I'm also the Executive Director of Manuel Manuel Family Center, a 28-year-old organization led by immigrant and low-income Oregonians. We serve about 2,000 families from throughout Marion and Polk counties each year. I'm here first and foremost to thank you for your swift response to the Salem community on the matter regarding Mr. Benjamin. There are some who believe that Mr. Benjamin was simply exercising his freedom of speech or that his comments were simply politically incorrect. But I want to be clear that bigotry is bigotry. In an individual, bigotry or any form of hatred is really of no concern to me. That is between them and their God or their conscience. But and also, let me take a moment to say that I do hope that this could be a learning experience for Mr. Benjamin, and I will give him the opportunity to show that this was a mistake and that he can learn from this. But it's also his choice not to learn from this. However, when it comes to elected officials and law enforcement and people with real power, that is a different matter. Elected officials and law enforcement have real power to help or hurt people. There is right now a lot of fear in Salem residents and the people that you represent. There is real fear. Fear like I haven't seen before in 20 years of professional experience. That's why for us tonight is so important, because we want to make sure that we send a message that Salem is going to live up to its name and strive to be a city of shalom, a city of peace. We will call each other out as we need to, but we will do so as friends and neighbors. We're not perfect, but we're going to try to always to be better. In this matter, I do want to recognize your response. And I also want to say that in our community, we saw great collaboration between African American, Latino, and all immigrant communities that came together for this. None of us are working inside of work. We came here together with a common message. And finally, I just want to reaffirm the commitment, my personal commitment, the commitment of my organization, Manuel Manuel, to work with the community to make this an even better place to live. But we need to be able to draw a line in the sand, as you have said tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Ana Olivia Palazzo Angulo, followed by Luisa Almutaka from the Salem Islamic Center. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson, President of the Council McCoy, and City Council members. Thank you for being so warm and welcoming to all of us speaking tonight. My name is Ana Olivia Palazzo Angulo, and I live in Ward 5. Diana has been our representative for many years, very, very well. I'm the Executive Director of the Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality, and I'm here to join the voices of our Latino families with the voices of all of Salem's communities of color from many diverse backgrounds, ethnicities, languages, and religions. And I also wanted to second everything that Reginald said and Levy. I wanted to say amen to everything they said. We applaud the censuring and resignation of Mr. Benjamin as a significant and public statement of the character and reputation of our city. We at SKCE want you to know that we appreciate very much our leaders, Mayor Peterson and the council's members who made a stand for equality, justice, and inclusion. Our organization works with hundreds of Spanish-speaking parents in the Salem Kaiser School District each year. We work with the district to increase the success of Latino students. The staff and board members of our organization are concerned for the well-being of the 16,400 K-12 students and another 3,000 or so of their young siblings, age 0 to 5. These children are being traumatized. Nearly all are citizens and legal residents. Children are traumatized when their parents are traumatized, as they are right now. The level of fear we are seeing in our work has risen to the toxic stress level. Something we talk a lot about at the Early Learning Hub and Early Learning Council is toxic stress. I know you and many other city leaders have a great interest in reducing toxic stress in families, and I know it is your priority, as is mine, that families and children are healthy and children are in school, bills are paid, food's on the table, and everyone feels safe. I know that you have an interest in preventing emotional and psychological damage to around 30,000 members of our community. Many languages, religions, ethnicities, as I said, all afraid that something bad will happen at any moment. And that's what's, in the last few weeks we've been hearing many stories, children being followed, taunted, hearing racial slurs. They're just tense. Even one incident like this is unacceptable for any person, but just if it happens to one child, it happens to all of us. Our community is only as healthy as individual parts, and if part of our community suffers, we all suffer. So in the next few weeks, I'm just hoping to hear from our city leaders a plan of how you can contribute to the health and safety and well-being of all of our individuals and families in this difficult political climate. Thank you for being a council I can be proud of and a city that I'm proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. Now, maybe I can learn to say your name. Would you say your name for me, please?
Absolutely. My name is Almont. I'm the Vice President of Salem Islamic Center. I'd like to speak on as a Muslim, as a person of color, and also as an immigrant on behalf of myself, behalf of my community, Muslim community, and to take the opportunity to thank the city of Salem and the council, city council, Madam Mayor, for your dedication and for your contribution in making the city such a beautiful, peaceful city for us to live in. It is disheartening there's 1.6 Muslims worldwide, and it's disheartening to see Muslims being blamed for acts that 99.9% of them have nothing to do with it. In fact, they're even against it. But to be in here to see how the city stood up for even such a small act, it makes us feel very welcome. And thus, I really wanted to show our appreciation to you and for the work that you have done so far. And we're so proud to be here. And I would like to end my testimony by saying, Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony and your being with us this evening. Andrea Williams, followed by John Scott.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson, members of the Salem City Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide comment this evening. My name is Andrea Williams. I'm a proud product of the Salem Kaiser Public School System, K through 12, right here in Salem. I'm also the executive director of CAUSA, which is an immigrant rights organization. We're a nonprofit that has worked for over 20 years to improve the lives of Latino immigrants and their families through civic engagement, leadership development, coalition building, and policy advocacy. CAUSA is based in Ward 1, for your information, and a lot of the families we work with live in Wards 1, 5, and 6. I want to, again, thank you, just as many of the speakers have done, for your swift response to Councilmember Daniel Benjamin's harmful and very racially charged social media communications. As a city that is committed to protecting civil rights, that values inclusion and diversity, and that has promised to make Salem a safe place for all its residents, The City Council and Salem community at large must continue to hold our local elected officials to its own very high standards. And it's now more important that the Salem City residents, Mayor Peterson, and City Council members act on our values of equality, respect, and inclusion. So many families, as you've heard today, are living in deep fear and uncertainty due to President-elect Donald Trump's campaign promises to deport so many families and disrupt people's daily lives, even here in Salem and in Oregon. After a very mean-spirited and toxic election season, certain individuals have felt emboldened to verbally and physically target communities of color. This is happening at our schools between students. We have the calls to prove it at our office. It's happening on the streets as people walk home or even on their way to Almont University. And so we need your action now more than ever. So in addition to your wonderful public comments of support, in addition to this vote here tonight, we need the City of Salem to enact additional policies that protect residents' civil and human rights so that we can fully be a community that is welcoming and a safe place for all, especially for immigrants and communities of color. CALSA is currently working with the City of Portland, and we have partners that are working with the City of Eugene to enact such policies. And I'd like to offer CALSA and myself as resources to explore ways that Salem can strengthen its policies to ensure that everyone has their civil and human rights protected. And in fact, we're working with attorneys to put together a policy toolkit for cities and counties to consider. And I would love to partner with you all on that, and I'll leave you with my contact information. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony and your time this evening. John Scott, followed by Paul Crissell, and then Bob Rossi. Welcome.
I'm John Scott. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. As an educator, I'm at ground zero when it comes to seeing the climate of our schools and our students. There has been a toxic level of fear and unease in the air in the time leading up to and since the election due to the racially charged rhetoric and events around the country as well as locally. Assuring all Salem-Keizer students attend safe schools and live in a safe community should be the top priority of our school district and our city council. I appreciate the prompt action of the council and of the many local social justice organizations like Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality, the NAACP Salem-Keizer Chapter, CALSA, Manuel Manuel, and others, as well as the school district's recognition that, and this is quoted, all of our students need to feel safe, welcome, and included. And this was in the district email that was sent out. I want the city to recognize and address the systemic racism that Salem is not immune to, and ask the council what they can do to facilitate breaking the chain of systemic racism as it exists in our community. What role will our city representatives play in this critical time? And how will the city work with our social justice community partners in order to create and foster a safe and inclusive community? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Paul Crissell, followed by Bob Rossi. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson, members of the City Council. My name is Paul Crissell, and I'm a resident of Ward 2. Proud to have Tom Anderson as my counselor because he listens, and that's very well appreciated in our ward. I'm a co-chair of the Racial Justice Organizing Committee here in Salem. We work as allies to many of the organizations you just heard of to support that work. We're a signatory to the joint letter you received demanding the resignation of Councilor Benjamin, and the City Council take all appropriate action to assure that Salem intends to be a safe place for all of its residents. Thank you for taking this seriously, and we appreciate all the effort that went into encouraging him to resign. We know that many of you talked with him personally to make that happen. But racism is not just about the actions of an individual. It is also about the structural and institutional inequality that creates barriers to people of color and threatens their health, safety, and lives. We all live and breathe in that social construct of racism. It's all the more important that public officials be held to a high standard of inclusion and safety. be held accountable to that high standard. You represent all of us and must work every day to assure that Salem is an inclusive and welcoming community. Let's be clear about the fact of institutional and structural racism. For example, the vast majority of mass shootings in this country are committed by young white Christian men. But as a white man, I have never held accountable for crimes committed by another white man. White Christians are likewise never held accountable for crimes committed by another white Christian. Yet it is all too often true that we hold all black people accountable for crimes committed by a black person, all Latino people accountable for crimes committed by a Latino person, or all Muslim people accountable for the crimes committed by a Muslim person. One of the racist posts by Councilor Benjamin contained a list of crimes committed by people who happen to be Muslim, proposing then that all Muslims are criminals, or worse yet, terrorists. But in fact, a list of crimes, mass shootings or hate crimes committed by white men or white self-professed Christians would be much longer. Remember that Dylan Roof, on trial for murdering members of a black church who invited him to join them in prayer, was a Lutheran. Yet I see no one claiming that therefore all Lutherans are mass murderers. These are examples of how we institutionalize racism. It's time to fight against racism, and we hope and expect the City Council will be partners in that fight. And while we're talking about a safe community, I also join those who are asking for a thorough investigation by the police department of allegations of cyberbullying by a police officer. In this case, cyberbullying is absolutely connected to work expectations and cannot be acceptable for any police officer. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Let's all work to make Salem a welcoming and safe community for all people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Bob Rossi, followed by, I believe it's Kari Blevins, and then Leslie McMillan.
Thank you. I'm Bob Rossi, Ward 1, and also a member of Racial Justice Organizing Committee. I think it's a good day to live in Salem. We have a mayor and a city council whose conscience moves them to do the right thing and censure racism. It's a good day when people of color leadership from local organizations are heard. And I want to thank everyone who's worked on this and is involved in seeking justice in this matter. And I want to condemn as strongly as possible the conditions which gave rise to this mess. And now we're called to be active again, or to not stop the activism. Please walk the talk and investigate the Salem police officer who allegedly cyberbullied a woman and sought to intimidate her along with the county police officer. If just cause is found for discipline after an investigation, please invoke the maximum penalty. There is a nexus between cyberbullying and police work. Please make every day a good day to live in Salem by opposing racism, sexism, transphobia, and all forms of privilege and discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rossi.